Welcome to the Creative Plan Podcast Network. Join us as we share our favorite RPGs, one-shot games, tabletop games, reviews of items, and convention panels, and other exciting things that we run into from time to time. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Kelly, aka Trixie from Ragnarok and Roll, a Scion to Ragnarok story, and Tilda Wimblewick from D&D Journey of the 5th Edition. First off, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for listening to our varied adventures, as well as for rating us on iTunes and RPGpodcast.com. If you haven't rated us yet, we would greatly appreciate it if you could. And if you're looking for more ways to support our efforts, we are now on Patreon, a great site where you can help us continue making more podcasts, as well as some special surprises for our patrons. If you can, please look us up at www.patreon.com/cppn. Every little bit helps. And again, thank you for listening.
So, welcome back to RPGaDAY 2019.
I remember last year you posted so much stuff.
Yep.
Something for every day.
So today is August the 9th, which is critical! So, who wants to go first?
Well, I'll go first, of course.
Okay.
Critical hit, critical fail, critical. I mean, I always think of, the critical fail, though, is the most disheartening. But it can be such an epic story, or add to the story, not, as long as you're not dying, You
mean critical fail?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, hey, actually, I'm okay if my character is going to die, if it works the whole story or the storyline, or I'll be sad to see them go. But if it's really a great cinematic moment,
So you mean go out at a critical time?
exactly. Ha ha ha. Yeah, I see what you did there. I would say that critical fails definitely have a positive place in the gaming experience, because it really does add the dynamics, and it makes the critical successes all that more awesome.
Because you need that risk reward.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no risk, the rewards is me.
Exactly.
Who wants to go next?
I mean, latching onto the critical roll, or the critical hit and critical fail, in 5e, certainly critical hits are a lot funner than critical fails. But even then, both of them have a place, and not every GM is Jim. Sometimes a critical fail sucks more than it should, and sometimes a critical hit isn't quite as satisfying as it should be. That's actually why I really enjoy the Genesis system, where it has kind of a critical system with triumphs and despairs, but both things can happen, and they don't always have to be the end of all things. So you get much more immersive storytelling in that there's a lot of push and pull between everyone at the table when you get these results. I enjoy it a lot more than just D20 1s and 20s, because the results are so varied and there's so many levels of it, rather than just you failed, yeah, you definitely hit. It forces any GM to add flavor to it, even if it's a GM who in D&D would just go, yeah, you fail. Sucks. Sucks to suck.
But do you think that you have to have the right GM, though? I mean, because if a GM, if they don't have necessarily, I don't want to say creativity, because it's a lot of hard work being a game master. It takes a lot, but some aren't as prepared to ad hoc.
Yeah, I mean,
it's more accurate.
That's what I meant when I said not all GMs are Jim.
Because put it on my board.
Yeah. Because I mean, I play and I GM D&D still because it's a classic system. I enjoy it. It's fun. I know more people who play D&D than people who play Genesis. I'm slowly changing that, but it's still there, and I still GM every Saturday night. Supposedly every Saturday night. That's how it goes. But when someone rolls a 1, I'm lazy. I'm a lazy GM. I think I can tell good stories, and I can ad hoc experiences and NPCs and everything pretty easily. I can pull it out of my mind, even stat blocks for monsters. It's not hard, but it's like, I really don't want to go into graphic detail of how this player who really wanted to succeed just shit the bed.
You know they make critical fail cards.
I know.
Jim
but
has used them before, and even like for those that can't or just don't want to, they have
options.
aids for that, which is
Yeah.
nice.
And that's nice, but I still just don't like that. It's like, I just gotta kind of shit.
You feel bad afterwards.
They rolled a single die and it turned out bad. Sucks. Or they rolled a single die and out of 20, their 5% odds were a 20. And they got it. Sweet, you win.
It is nice when friendly fire happens, right? There's something satisfying about watching people at the table who like each other shoot each other by accident.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised. Well, actually,
Carrie.
wouldn't be. My sister, always seems to shoot her, her team members in the back. Always.
In our old 3.5 game, she had healing arrows just to offset shooting her friends in the back by accident.
Yeah.
But going back to that, it's in D&D. There's always a dichotomy, whether it's critical hit or critical fail, or success or failure. Whereas things like Genesis kind of do away with that, where there's good in the bad and there's bad in the good, because you can have a success and threat, or a failure and advantage. Whereas if you were to do that in D&D, you'd have to have like a level of success thing, where it's like if you succeed by only 1 or 2, or if you fail by only 1 or 2,
and that would be too clunky.
The more complex you make the system, the more players just kind of check out. I've found.
Yeah.
But Genesis does a good job of just naturally putting that in, even all the way to the point of really, really good results can still have bad things happen.
Which is one of the great things with the dice system is just success, failure, advantage, disadvantage, threat.
Yeah.
It's a great system.
It's amazing, and that's why I don't really like the critical system of D20 systems, because it's just kind of you have a 5% chance either way of sucking or saving.
Yeah. One of the things that I always try to do when I DM is actually remind the players. 1 in 20 is 5%. So sometimes you get players that try to, because I rolled a 20, all of these, blah, 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 and it's like, like 1 in a million shot happens. Mm-hmm. So I try and not have the critical hits be so, oh my god, wonderful. And of course, on the other side, I also make, the critical fails not
so
debilitating.
So not like the Dead Gentleman production of The Gamers, where he rolls the natural 20 for shooting the arrow, and the arrow literally follows the person around corners.
Right,
like knocks on doors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the alternative where, they roll a 1 and the sword breaks. Because, the sword might actually.
I really like to destroy a weapon permanently.
Yeah.
He'll destroy bowstrings.
Because it's an action to restring it. You know?
Yeah.
I'm sure any competent
if
bow
you use
only an action.
Like
it takes about 6 seconds to get out your backup bowstring.
If you critically fail, you're off balance. You lose.
Or you drop it.
Or you drop the sword.
Drop is usually my favorite. My favorite one is fling 1d4 squares. My favorite. Because especially if it's past the bad guys.
Use a D8 to determine what direction.
Yeah. Classic hex crawl style.
D6 to direction.
So that way I have to go past danger to get my sword. Excuse me, Mr. Kobold, would you hand me
Tax
that
of opportunity.
So I actually want to go a slightly different way with critical, because I want to talk about critical thinking.
Ooh.
And one of the things that I really like about role play games is that it allows you to enhance your critical thinking. thinking in all sorts of different types of situations, both tactically and even socially in a lot of cases. If you're playing certain types of role-playing games and you're doing something where there's a social aspect to the campaign, you get to try out different roles. You actually get to role play. You get to see, how it is to be, this type of person. And so I think it's really important to be able to, come up with traps, and be able to think your way through things, or come up with a strategy so that way everything just isn't, rolling dice and sword play. One of the big things that role-playing games and only role-playing games can do, and it doesn't matter how good the computer game is for your ability to actually think through the problem and not just have to hack your way through everything. And that's where I think role-playing still has its niche, because tactically, you're never going to be able to come up with any system that's as good as any of the computer systems if you're just talking tactics and strategy.
Yeah.
Just because that's, crunching numbers is what computers are good at.
Yeah.
Being able to, display amazing graphics is what computers are good at.
But outside the box thinking.
But not just outside the box thinking, but being able to create and solve problems. Not just necessarily traps, but like social situations, or stratagems, or how do you get into the castle, or all of these things where you actually need a DM to be able to figure out, how what you're doing is being modified by the situation, so that way, the scenario is actually run well. And that's what I think, real role-playing, around the table, is really doing. I mean, personally, I believe that in general, the less dice you have to roll, the better the game generally is for role-playing. Because there are, if there's a table dice,
I'm addicted to dice, so.
I mean, there are board games. Okay, there are role-playing games which are essentially board games. Okay, because you're basically rolling your dice and you're doing things, and there was a game and it's still really popular called Dungeon.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. With all sorts of different supplements. And too many RPGs become that type of, okay, roll the dice, what do you get? All of the things that,
when your
D&D
game becomes a war game.
Right. You can, computers were doing that in the 70s.
Yeah.
With dungeons, literal dungeons.
Yeah.
And I guess sometimes those are fun. But for me, fun role-playing games is when you get to role-play, when you get to influence a situation, with the dice, but also with your planning.
Yeah. You'd like to go beyond the murdering hobo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kick in the door, kill the monster, and go down the hallway.
Kill loot.
Kill loot is sometimes quite fun. And
exactly.
when I want that experience, I'll play something like Gloomhaven or King of Death Monster or Dungeon, where it's like, that's the goal of the game. It's really just there to, I want to dungeon crawl. But tabletop RPGs are role-playing games.
Yeah, I like putting the ROLE back into...
Instead of ROLL play.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree. Don't get me wrong, I still don't mind to, okay, go and kill,
Sometimes
kill and loot.
it's just fun.
Exactly.
Especially if I've made the bastard killable.
Yeah.
Some people just need killing.
But if we can go, get Jim to say, wow, I wasn't expecting you to do that, then I'm like,
that's a win.
Like, we have another game where it's like, for the longest time, we didn't kill anything. We talked our way out, or so it was pretty impressive.
Almost a whole 3 hours for something's actually knifed.
And that's another thing that computers can't do. They can't surprise you.
Yeah.
Like in our Twilight Imperium Genesis game that I run on every other Sunday that Jim does not record because it is very adult themed.
Or take pictures of that battle map that's very adult themed.
Oh God! Oh good God!
I told Kelly about that one.
Yeah. But I mean, I was running the game, and Jim's like, "All right, I'm gonna use the ability of the gun I have that allows me to light an enemy on fire if I do well enough on the roll."
My little plasma missile.
Yeah, and he just didn't realize that the oily sheen on the bug was
Adaptive.
adaptive,
Yeah.
and so he just lit a bug on fire without hurting it, and so the bug's like, "All right, I guess I'll burn everyone around me now."
Let's not forget while it was wrestling the guy underneath it on our
Oh
team.
yes.
Yeah.
And so he was very much surprised by that bit of adaptability.
Yeah.
Our computer could never do that. It would give you too many hints.
And then what was my next action?
Calling in fire suppression, which surprised me
A
that he
critical
thought of.
change in thinking.
Yeah.
My race is very not sociable. I get black dice and never
Are
social.
cunning.
But they are cunning military bastards. And we're on a friendly station, so why wouldn't I just get the guy in the comments saying, "Do you know the fire sprinkler system here? You have a flaming giant bug."
And that absolutely worked because it surprised me, but
And
boy was it good critical
thank
thinking.
God I did, because his next after the bug was to napalm the room with caustic acid, which dropped me down to only 2 points. Nail all was good, but my guy didn't have much armor on, so I only had 2 points left.
Oh.
So of
It
course
had-
the fire extinguisher was a nice basic baking soda solution.
Because the
Realize
burn
all that.
effect of the acid would have killed me behind cover the next round.
Yep.
Ah.
So
So
coincidentally,
counteracted
2 birds,
that.
1 stone. And I
So-
didn't even know about the acid coming.
Yeah, so critical thinking really can save you.
Yes.
Turn on the sprinklers!
Oh God, I'm burning! I'm on fire!
What about
So for me, I actually wrote down some little notes here for mine. So for the critical, I decided to go all cerebral and crap and say,
Oh man.
don't be critical of your players, and players don't be critical of your GM.
Oh, that's nice.
Because there are those times when you hit some player, or a player hits a GM on a day that you're just not there, and or you skip a rule, or you flub a rule, and just let the story flow. Even if you like flub a rule, go back later and say, okay, now that we've covered the rule, good, because that's like a classic gaming thing. Is don't rules lawyer at the time. Look it up. We'll talk about it later. But for now, keep the story going. Don't be critical of the rules.
My sword glows blue in the presence of a rules lawyer.
Though that being said, you should always be critical of yourself. Not
True.
necessarily in the moment, but afterwards, always reflect on what happened, what you did,
Yep.
how you could have done better, either playing your character or being a better player.
As
Yeah.
both a player and a GM make
In
a
a
study
social
aid,
aspect
you know,
as
both.
well as in the game.
You know, it's one of those of like when you're playing, you're like, damn, I bogarted that spot. You know, critically think about your character, but just don't be critical of other people. You know, it's one of those
There's-
that cut them slack at the game table.
Yeah, no, there's this game that I did at RenCon that I still kick. I literally feel guilt over that I didn't X card myself. I'm like, what the?
It was a really fun game, but she went crazy. But then again, nobody at the table had an issue, so it's just that in a secure group, you don't need the X card.
Oh no, I should have X carded myself.
I'm not a fan of the X card myself, but that's just because I've never used the X card because I'm like, get it, do it, yes, do it, yeah, do it, do it. Yes, give it the dark side. But then again, I you know me, between language and tone and theme, I gotta push my players' buttons. That's how we have a good time. It's not fun if at least one button's not getting pushed. Just make sure it's not the big red button. So just remember not to be critical of players, and players not to be critical of GMs.
GMs have to put in a lot of work.
And if you do have to give feedback, either way, because like player to player feedback, player to GM, GM to player feedback, don't be critical. Take time, talk about it later. Don't.
There can be such things as constructive criticism.
Well, that's the big difference.
But it's like
Be constructive.
yeah.
Like, one of the things that I'll be critical about you players is one player tells another player how to play as a player. That I'm never a fan of, but I understand the tactical players who are critical thinkers are like, no, you're not doing it right. But it's good to coach, not to try to play their character. Guide, show, don't tell. So that's what I've got for critical. Don't be critical of your players and GM. Don't be critical of me. I can't take your feedback.
Also, if you're not paying money to your GM, they are doing a lot of hard work preparing.
They do.
So at least bring snacks or something.
Yeah, that's true. And oftentimes they're the ones that provide the books and extra materials and stuff. So
if we're talking about critical GMs, they're critical.
GM, I was actually in a group where they were showing memes and stuff of, oh, I don't want any groups to play. It's like, oddly enough, I always have games to run or play, but that's mainly because I GM so much. People are like, I want to run a game, let me come play my game,
Like I did with you.
Yeah. So, it's one of those of, there might be a reason why you don't have a GM in your game, but I don't want to be critical.
Well, you guys take a lot of abuse.
Yeah.
I mean,
if we do our job right, we are both the angel and the devil.
Exactly.
Because that's our job, is to be both the angel and the devil, and not actually take a side.
Yeah. We are an impartial observer, laughing at your stupid attempts.
Laughing at you flying into the flame.
Well, that's one of the problems that some bad GMs have, is that they think that they are against the players, and the players are defeating their people and monsters and things.
In some ways, that's true.
That's why they're called
if you're
killers.
playing a villain, you gotta
you gotta behave properly.
But while you're the GM, you have to impartially take both sides.
But the good GMs, don't set out
Take it
to.
personally.
Yeah, exactly, and they play the NPCs
to character.
Completely. Exactly. So they're not the everything in the barmaid is not trying to kill you, but a killer GM.
Except when the barmaid's trying to
Unless the
barmaid's
doppelganger killed her, took her place, knowing that you liked her.
But with the killer GM, everything is out to get you, not only your
When
dice.
you have an unlimited budget, if you really want to kill a player group, you give them, and I've done this before with groups, you give them a group of NPCs and say, I've done it before with people, it's like, okay, you're all playing first level fighters going to this fortress. You go there. Vampires murder you all. The one survivor gets to tell the player party after session 0 and you make your characters the story. And that, if you want to play a killer GM, you can be a killer GM, but just make sure it's not the players you're killing.
Yeah.
Massacre offset, so that way you can actually do the whole set the scene for the players because you have a survivor to say this is what's there, blah blah blah. So then your players go in forewarned that you will get massacred. Or the one-time use only for any party group is if you have someone with some kind of precognitiveness, you warn the precog, you say screw it to the rest of the party, you massacre them all and say, and precog, you just woke up and that was the dream if you guys followed through on the plan you had. And you basically burned 1 or 2 sessions in the group, which I've never done it to Kelly because we've never really had a precog in that. But I've done it in riffs many times.
No, but he did something kind of similar with the Seven Dwarfs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Our silent game. They
My
went to
sister
the
went
real
ballistic.
Sleeping Beauty Castle. She left her NPC husband behind in Sleeping Beauty's
and
castle.
my
And
sister
Snow White's
said the
castle.
one thing.
This is the after hours of the Critical Day talk.
Yes.
Oh,
Anyone's still
she
listening.
went.
Now we're being
Yeah.
critical.
She went critical nuclear.
After editing, I took 15 minutes for screaming at 50 decibels or higher. And turned it to only about 15 seconds worth before we
She
got
went
back on
ballistic.
game. Because she's like, the one thing I told you is not to kill my husband.
Are my kids. You can't
Yeah.
fuck with the
Because
husband or
in
the kids.
character, she basically spent 3 days seducing Thorson and she
Yeah.
got pregnant.
So you just get a really high decibel.
Oh, it was, yeah.
And
And
then
I'm
they
like-
murdered the dwarves. And then they found out the dwarves were the security guards protecting this magic doppelganger mirror. They
I didn't
killed
murder the
doppel-
dwarves. I protected the populace.
That's what we call it. I didn't murder the dwarves. I protected the populace.
Exactly.
You
I
did.
was the
You
one doing the
smoked the
smoke and
building.
mirrors.
So that's critical.
Yeah.
So, and,
GMs, they're
Yeah.
critical.
Yes, GMs are critical. That's a really great one. Is this what's the one thing you can't play without? GMs or players?
Yep.
Unless you buy the new D&D Essentials kit, which no one's been able to buy in Target until it hits stores in September, where you can apparently play solo D&D on.
Hey, actually, back in the day, they did have a solo adventures, the modules and stuff, and they give you the little red, gel thing, so that you could look at the maps.
The
and
plastic
stuff.
screen.
I had one.
Way back in the 3rd edition DM guide, they basically had a randomizer where you can create, dungeon crawls.
Yeah, even in the 5th edition DM's guide, they've got you can make a card deck, so we could all be playing and flip to see what's in the room randomly.
That's a really good functionality they have on Roll20, is that you can create your own decks of cards and stuff like that.
Yeah, so that way it's literally the 4 of us could be playing a dungeon randomly building as we go, and I've jokingly thought that would be a really fun thing to do, just like to kill a day, to see what the dungeon looks like afterwards.
Well, when I used to run games on Roll20, what I'd do is I'd make a deck of monsters that would be in given areas. That way it's like, I don't know what the hell's going to come up. You're just going to get things until they reach your party's challenge rating or slightly above, because challenge rating is always so off.
It's ridiculously broken.
Especially at high levels when it's like, this one monster is a CR 9, and you have a party of 9. It's like, party of 4 players at level 9 are going to tear this thing apart in less than a round. You need to give it minions for a total of CR of like 15. Then it's fair.
Then it's a busy fight. So we digress. We critically digress.
Yep.
Alrighty, guys.
This conversation has reached critical mass.
But not critical fail. So that is August the 9th, critical.
Thank you for listening to D&D Journey of the 5th Edition, a member of the Creative Play and Podcast Network. And remember, be careful out there. There be dragons about.
Like, you should start taking these
quotes
and posting them on Patreon or YouTube, like in the description of the video.
Dude, if you want to shoot them to me, I will.
I can. I don't have them for every single thing. I have them for 2019, 18, and then I have it marked as 5, 4, 3, 2, and just Genesis games. Even though those are not the sessions they occurred in, it's just the first time I took notes, second, whatever. So I'll have to go and match them to videos. Alright, so tonight's quotes. Yeah, I get the gist of the power dynamics, I just didn't know what the words were. I think they would frown upon that. Not if they're full of tentacles. Engineer extraordinaire, holy priest of aethermancy, doctor of many talents, doctor, chemist, wrestler, pilot, navigator, mechanic.
Hero.
Extraordinary.
Pack them in like sardines. Actually, could you turn them into sardines? We go back to the old solution of getting rid of bones. We did determine that was a good thing. There are bunk beds for like 10 people. A bunk bed that can sleep 10? Wow. That was so good because Kelly and I were on
like
the exact same page.
In Siberian winter, bunk bed sits you.
Can you fit in the vent? It's an easier perception check if you don't have bones. My fortune cookie has a message for you. When in doubt, call a friend. I guess mind control isn't a great idea, unless you're subtle about it. A little bit of quid pro quo. I think you mean quid pro quim.
Oh my god.
Oh man, they brought this upon themselves. Now they'll have to get whipped with my mongrel cock.
The absolute worst one of the bunch.
That came right out of my head. It's like, what's the worst thing? That. It's like, this is gonna happen if they attack me. They're just gonna face a naked 8-man of Zanzibar. It's gonna happen. I'm dual wielding.
Scrotum counts as an offhand weapon, right?
No, I have my cane and then I have my gun.
He has
This
his
is a
cane
way-
and then he has his third leg.
This is one for killing. killing and this one's for fun. Oh wait,
They don't call
They're
them
both
these
for
guys
fun.
for nothing.
Tripod.
I'll walk out with my head held high. Heads held high.
No. The quote was, "You'll come out with your heads held high." It was even funnier than that.